Coming up on 5 Minute News. Turkey arrests building contractors as death toll passes 33,000. US military shoots down 4 objects in 8 days. And Trump paid researchers to find election fraud, but hid results. It's Monday, February 13. I'm Anthony Davis. Authorities in Turkey are targeting contractors allegedly linked with buildings that collapsed in the powerful February 6 earthquakes, as rescuers found more survivors in the rubble yesterday, including a pregnant woman and 2 children, in the disaster that killed over 33,000 people. The death toll from the magnitude 7.8 and 7.5 quakes that struck 9 hours apart in southeastern Turkey and northern Syria rose to 33,185 and was certain to increase as search teams find more bodies. As despair bred rage at the agonizingly slow rescues, the focus turned to assigning blame. Turkish Justice Minister Bekir Bozdağ said 131 people were under investigation for their alleged responsibility in the construction of buildings that failed to withstand the quakes. While the quakes were powerful, many in Turkey blame faulty construction for multiplying the devastation. Turkey's construction codes meet current earthquake engineering standards, at least on paper, but they are rarely enforced, explaining why thousands of buildings toppled over or pancaked down onto the people inside. 2 contractors held responsible for the destruction of buildings were arrested on Sunday at Istanbul airport while trying to leave the country. One detained contractor said, "My conscience is clear. I built 44 buildings. 4 of them were demolished. I did everything according to the rules." A US fighter jet shot down an unidentified object over Lake Huron on Sunday on orders from President Joe Biden. It was the 4th such downing in 8 days and the latest military strike in an extraordinary chain of events over US airspace that Pentagon officials believe has no peacetime precedent. Part of the reason for the repeated shootdowns is a heightened alert following a spy balloon from China that emerged over US airspace in late January. General Glenn Van Herk, head of NORAD and US Northern Command, said in a briefing with reporters. Since then, fighter jets last week also shot down objects over Canada and Alaska. Pentagon officials said they posed no security threats, but so little was known about them that Pentagon officials were ruling nothing out. "We have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase," said Melissa Dalton, Assistant Defense Secretary for Homeland Defense. US authorities have made clear that they constantly monitor for unknown radar blips, and it's not unusual to shut down airspace as a precaution to evaluate them. But the unusually assertive response was raising questions about whether such use of force was warranted, particularly as administration officials said the objects were not of great national security concern, and the downings were just out of caution. The disgraced former president Donald Trump's 2020 election campaign commissioned an outside research firm in a bid to prove electoral fraud claims, but never released the findings because the firm disputed many of his theories and could not offer any proof that he was the rightful winner of the election. The campaign paid researchers from Berkeley Research Group to study 2020 election results in 6 states, looking for fraud and irregularities to highlight in public and in the courts. Among the areas examined were voter machine malfunctions, instances of dead people voting, and any evidence that could help Trump show he won. None of the findings were presented to the public or in court. About a dozen people at the firm worked on the report, including econometricians who use statistics to model and predict outcomes. The work was carried out in the final weeks of 2020 before the January 6 riot of Trump supporters at the US Capitol. Donald Trump continues to falsely assert that the 2020 election was stolen, despite abundant evidence to the contrary, much of which has been provided to him or was publicly available before the Capitol assault. The findings were not what the Trump campaign had been hoping for. While researchers believed there were voting anomalies and unusual data patterns in a few states, along with some instances in which laws may have been skirted, they did not believe the anomalies were significant enough to make a difference in who won the election. The research also contradicted some of Trump's more conspiratorial theories, such as his baseless allegations about rigged voting machines and large numbers of dead people voting. The findings from Berkeley were among the many streams of information after the election that showed Trump he lost. According to testimony presented to the January 6 committee, Trump was repeatedly told by advisers that he did not win the election, but continued to cast doubt for others who would entertain his theories and say that he had won. Dozens of judges, including many Trump appointees, rejected his campaign's attempts to challenge election results in court. Trump has continued to spread false claims that he won the election, frustrating some of his advisers who wish he would move to a forward-looking message as part of his 2024 bid to reclaim the presidency. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.